Welcome to Babes, Balls, and Brands, the show where we keep it real about sports, NIL, and building brands that win. I'm Janet Moreira, lawyer, brand protector, and unapologetic sports mom. I understand the grind on and off the field, and I want to give you the playbook. Okay, so today we are diving into a topic that every athlete and every parent needs to get real about, and that is building true financial awareness and protecting everything that you are grinding for. Today, I am joined by someone who's doing this work at the highest level, and that is Dontay Wilson of Cothrine Financial. And he is a lead advisor there who helps high-profile individuals, families, and entrepreneurs design smart, intentional financial strategies that build and protect wealth across generations. Dontay isn't just a financial professional, though. He has also lived the athlete journey. He grew up in the Bronx, and he played football in the Bronx and in Stamford, Connecticut. And he wrapped up his football career as a running back at Kutztown University. Is that correct? Kutztown?
Kutztown. It's close. It's close enough. I appreciate it.
All right. Good.
Yeah.
Well, his own transition has sparked the vision for what he's doing today. And he's also founded a platform called Blueprint Money Management. And that platform is dedicated to helping NIL athletes develop real financial habits, budgeting, saving, planning, and creating systems that outlast their playing careers. His mission is about breaking cycles, building legacy, and making sure that athletes grow into financially successful adults, not just successful athletes. So if you're a parent or an athlete or trying to navigate NIL and money management, well, then this is the episode for you to watch. So Dontay, welcome to Babes, Balls, and Brands, and I am so glad that you're here.
Thank you.
Let's get started with this question, which I tend to ask all of my guests, and that is, What is a ballsy move or a bold move, since this podcast is called Babes, Balls, and Brands? What's something bold that you did that helped you get to where you are today?
That's a great question. As I mentioned, relearning myself was a humbling place to be in, right? Because I had so much of my hopes and dreams on going into the NFL. But, what I had to do is reinvest into myself, right? Reinvest into myself, reinvest into an idea or a career that will give me the autonomy and the space and the opportunities to work back into the sporting arena, right? And I learned that in this arena that we're in, that there are gaps, right? And those gaps are pretty loud, but not loud enough where it's highly mentioned or talked about, right? And those gaps are financial literacy within players, and having a close circle of athletes I played college ball with who ended up going pro, family members who ended up going pro, right? These are our topics of conversations that were being had. And so for me, being able to immerse myself in that space, reinvest myself, was really me believing in myself, right? That I have a story that can be relatable, and a passion behind really helping reshape the ideology of fitting in, making it seem like we're all together when really, right, we're suffering in silence, right? And so how can I put myself in a position to help bridge that gap and to really talk about those uncomfortable conversations?
Well, it sounds like you decided to go into the space of specifically helping athletes and families in the sports arena because of your love of sports, right? But also because it sounds like you were inspired by this sort of missing link between sports and financial literacy and really understanding that space as well. So I think it's great that you have both sides of that. You were an athlete, you've seen it from all sides, and now you're helping families and student athletes on the financial side.
Correct.
So when you think about the financial side of NIL or the sports in general, what are some of the biggest mind shifts that you believe that athletes and families need to make?
I'm so glad you asked. That's a great question. The biggest mind shift I see is moving from student to earner almost overnight. NIL turns these young athletes into business owners, whether they realize it or not, right?
Yeah.
And families are suddenly dealing with contracts, taxes, branding, and budgeting. And emotionally, there's a shift from I'm just playing a sport I love to my decision now affects my financial future, right? And so, really, what my role is to help them slow down, right? Let's get grounded and understand that NIL money isn't just a moment. It could be the foundation of generational wealth if it is approached the right way.
Oh, I love that. Well, as you said, NIL has created these amazing opportunities, but like you also said, there's a lot of confusion because there's all these additional responsibilities that are placed on young athletes and families, starting very quickly. From your perspective, what do you think is the most misunderstood part of financial planning?
Right, exactly. And I think really what I think I'm getting from the question is, the opportunities of what can parents do, families to recommend these kids on, emerging, right, and taking advantage of what they are getting from their contracts, right? And one of the things that I think is important is first taxes, because if you're earning the money, right, you're responsible for what comes off the top. So a lot of families are shocked by how much they owe at the end of the year. And then second, budgeting in your cash flow. So understanding what comes in, what goes out, and what should be saved. And then thirdly, I believe is the vision, right? So what do we want this money to do for the athlete long term? Because without a clear purpose, NIL money disappears fast.
Is there some sort of like formula that you use or that you offer to families as like a guide for maybe their budgeting purposes, or does it really depend on the family?
No, there is a formula that we do put in place, and so we usually, strategize a formula based on your everyday needs as far as books for school, right, meals, right, transportation costs, right, and so we really look at the overall picture of how much money is coming in versus how much money is going out. And what does that look like when you do get that contract, right? How much do we need to put set to the side? Is that part of your scholarship? Right, that's another thing to kind of ask, right? Or do you have the scholarship in addition to your NIL contract, and how do we make sure that we don't overspend, right? And so really it's just putting together a system, going over your expenses, right? Making sure that we understand what the contract really holds, understanding, right, whether or not if that's part of your scholarship or if it's not. And once we get a clear idea of your expenses, then we're able to put together a month by month budget to really steer you in the right direction. So we really put together some bank accounts, right? Making sure that you have a business account, right? That's also important. Now, and we could probably get into that later, and probably have a tax professional who could kind of speak to the benefits of having an LLC, right? So those tax benefits, right? But just making sure you have all of these accounts created, LLCs, right? And pretty much having a system to help manage your expenses, which is what me and my team, we do.
Let's say that I'm a parent and I'm coming to you,
Okay.
right? And I'm saying to you, hey, you know what, Dontay, I have a really hard time talking to my kids about money. What are some things, like, how can I approach this subject? Are there little things that I can chat about to kind of get them thinking about money?
Yes, and I'm glad you asked that. And so first I start with their story,
Okay.
right? Because that really does shape the picture of, the projection of how this relationship will work, right? Or if I'm a fit for what we can offer you, right? So I start with their story, where they come from, what matters to them, and the life they want after sports, right? Once we're
Yeah.
clear on those values, every deal opportunity is filtered through one question: does this move you closer to your long-term vision or distract you from it? Because we build budgets and saving plans around their values, not what social media tells them what success looks like. So, for me, when the family is aligned on the athlete's future, decision making becomes much more clearer and less more emotional.
Well, that's huge. Now, when it comes to how you've seen or maybe you've heard from families, what are some red flags that you would say come up when families or managers or advisors are managing NIL money early on? Are there some things that people should watch out for when it comes to money management and specific advisors? Are there maybe fees that might be too exorbitant? What are some things that might help families navigate away from advisors that may be not in their best interests?
So I'm so glad you asked that because I always tell families first, right? First and
Yeah.
foremost, trust the person, but verify the credentials. Athletes should build a team that includes a financial professional, right? Obviously, an accountant and someone who understands contracts or legal language, right? But when vetting advisors, ask yourself, right? Or ask them, not yourself, but ask them, what licenses do you hold? How are you compensated? What experience do you have with young earners or athletes? And what systems do you have in place to protect us from these mistakes? Because one thing I've learned and I've seen over and over again, and I know you've seen this as well, and you and I are both in this space, but transparency is everything, Janet. It's everything,
Yeah.
right? The advisors should educate, never push. If someone can explain something simply, the family shouldn't move forward.
Well, that is a great piece of advice because if someone can't explain it simply, that means that they don't really understand it themselves, right? Something that I talk about all the time is sort of building your team and how important it is to build your team on and off the field. So, and you mentioned some things about your financial advisors or the people that could be on your team, whether it's a financial advisor or a certified public accountant, a CPA. What are some of these credentials or certifications that might be important for someone who's looking for a financial advisor?
Yeah, someone who's a securities license holder is
Okay.
always good. And even if you're not a security license holder, but someone who's more so in the protection of money, which you don't have to be security licensed for, because that also just provides more advice on protecting your money and not more so investing your money into the market, which you have to be security licensed to do if you're putting someone's funds into the stock market, right? That takes a securities license to have, right? But also to a certified financial planning license, right? Someone who is CFP, and that really goes into the death of financial planning, right?
Yeah.
Which at that point, like advisors are more than likely probably will charge a fee for their services, but a fee, is shouldn't be the biggest of your worries. If anything, it should be the least of your worries, right? Because now you have an advisor who is licensed as a professional to really make sure you maximize with every dollar and penny that comes through the door, right? So really, it is a really good investment, right? Only if you're investing in the right one. So I would say having those security licenses, which you don't necessarily have to have, but if you are an advisor who is investing into the stock market, then of course having a security license does benefit the client. But then also too, in addition, taking it a step further, right? I call this, if some advisors may find it different, right? I call this the doctrine of financial planning. But having your CFP license is also something that you should look into when vetting out a financial advisor or financial planner. Yeah,
CFP stands for Certified Financial Planner, right?
correct. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I know that we talked a little bit about, educating families and student athletes, and I know that you've developed an entire platform for this. What are some of the things that you do in your field to help families feel empowered and sort of not intimidated by financial decisions?
Yeah, no, great question. So generally, a lot of high school, programs are a great place to start, right?
Yeah.
Just here in Texas, the Governor Abbott just passed a law where seniors can now receive NIL deals in high school, right? I actually think they might have made some changes to it where I think even juniors as young as juniors now. And so really the education starts right at the high school level. You would think it actually starts at a college level, but it actually starts now in the high school level because these kids, especially in the state of Texas, I mean, football is big out here. These kids are getting grand slam home run deals coming out of high school. So really it starts with the education in the schools, right? And providing financial literacy. So one of the things that we do hold seminars where we welcome a lot of the parents and the students and the kids to come out to get the financial education to receive and to help inspire them to be better informed with money. And I titled my seminar, which is pretty cool because it kind of rings a bell, especially for those skilled players, right? Is don't fumble the bag,
Jeez.
right?
Yeah.
And it's exactly how it sounds. Don't fumble the bag, right? And I talk about real life instances, professional athletes, that is. I won't mention any names just to kind of protect their confidentiality. But some of what we know just from, media that they are professional athletes out there who made a lot of money and unfortunately are having a struggle with maintaining the money, right? And so,
Yeah.
how do we avoid those pitfalls, right? And so, we go into that discussion, right?
Yeah.
Understanding taxes, and I know I mentioned taxes several times, and you might hear me mention it a lot of more times, but taxes really is a big
Important.
topic of a conversation,
Yeah.
and it should be talked about a lot more because when you're getting these large contracts, right? That $400,000 contract you see, right, on that dotted line, that has to be taxed,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so when you see that, kids get excited. They think that's a lot of money you can take home. When really, it's not. So really,
Yeah.
part of my seminar, which I touch on, is understanding those pitfalls, right? Using real life instances of athletes who um, probably wish they had what kids probably have today, that support
Mhm.
to manage their money, to having a trusted advisor or a trusted accountant, right? An attorney, right? A team of professionals to help guide them, right? But also to help put a plan in place so that way they can that way they too can avoid making those mistakes.
It brings up a really great point about building financial confidence and how that can help alleviate some of the stresses of student athletes. I think that one of the things that financial literacy does is helps these student athletes build financial confidence, helps their mental state of mind, so that as they're navigating these things, they feel maybe a little bit less pressure because they have an understanding of what's happening with their money. Financial literacy is so important from the financial component of it, of course, but also from the mental side of it.
I agree.
Yeah. So what's one common mistake that you see early stage athletes make with their money or their NIL earnings? And I'm guessing we've touched upon it quite a bit. But I'm wondering if that mistake is not saving for taxes.
Yeah, I have a teenager. She's 16, right? And we all know kids nowadays, they're all about likes and images, right? And how many followers you get, right, on social media. And unfortunately, there's this real thing of societal pressures, right? Or for the lack of better terms, I'm kind of keeping myself abreast on certain slang that these kids use, right? Or clout chasing, right? It's another term
Yeah.
I hear often, right? And people may say, "What's clout?" Well, for some people, right, clout is defined as kids posting a car, that they just spent a ton of money on, right? And they did it because they want to get a lot of likes. They want people to see that they made it, right? But um, who's feeling the pain, right? After you buy a car that you probably didn't have the money for, or if you did, right, it really did put a pinch on that dollar that you made, right? And so,
Yeah.
really, the biggest mistake is societal pressures, right? Kids who feel the need to impress their friends, their peers, to uphold an image, to keep up with the Joneses, and keeping up with the Joneses can really set you back. And so, I would say, for any kid that's out there and watching this, to not give in to societal pressures, right?
Yeah.
Be your own leader, right? Don't follow the trend, right? Set your own trend. Um, and just because you don't post it, don't means that you don't have it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's my 2 cents into what I feel is one of the norms that we see today, and what one of the biggest pitfalls kids generally make is societal pressures, really more so on social media.
What do you think is, maybe you can think of a student athlete or a family where they've done it right, and explain what that means. Like, what is doing it right in terms of, financial planning mean for you?
I think doing it right kind of speaks on some of the points that I might have shared, right? Which
Yeah.
is, having the team, right? Vetting out, your resources, right? Making sure that you are surrounded around those who want to see you win, because your village really does make a huge difference. Who's in your ear, right? Who has your best interest? And of course, we all know mom and dad and those who raise you do have your best interest, right? But what happens when you're out there alone, right? And your mom and dad is not there to make the decision for you, right? And so just making sure that you have the right support system, that you have the right system in place as well to help make sure that you make those better informed decisions. But I really truly believe that it really starts with your village.
What is something that a financial advisor can share with student athlete about really thinking long term and not just looking at what's happening in the moment? Is there something that you would share with them in order to get them, thinking beyond what's happening right now?
Yeah, yeah, because it ties into building a legacy, right?
Right.
Because the legacy is the impact you leave long after the lights go out and the game ends.
Yeah.
Right. And for those athletes, that means using NIL not as a moment to spend, but as a moment to build. Right. And so one of the things that I'll talk about, when sitting with a young woman or young man is, consistency. Right. So,
Yeah.
smart saving, which is what you just, spoke on. Right. Safe wealth building tools, right? To make sure you guard and protect your money, right? Protecting their name and their brand, right? And they're creating a life that they're proud of well beyond after sports, right?
Yeah.
Because guess what? Guess what, Janet? Legacy doesn't start at age 30 or when they retire. It starts right now with a decision that they make at 16, 18, or even 21 years old, you know?
That's so important, Dante. Yeah,
Yeah.
because legacy doesn't start it later. It starts now.
Starts
And
now.
it's every decision that you make that's leading up to how strong your legacy is going to be, how long it's going to last,
Yep.
um, all of those things. Let's shift gears to parents, because I feel like parents are sort of the first line of defense, particularly now with these young athletes. What do you advise parents, or how can parents set boundaries or systems that keep the athlete's financial life structured without being overbearing? I think you mentioned earlier maybe setting up an LLC, to have that income coming in. Are there other things that you would suggest parents do in terms of either boundary setting, budget setting, or other systems that can kind of keep this portion of an athlete's life in check?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, of course, the family plays a huge role because the athlete is young, learning, and often overwhelmed. But I think the key is guidance without control. I think parents should help the athlete stay disciplined, hold them accountable to the plan,
Mm.
be aware of taxes, deadlines, and responsibilities. But they, of course, shouldn't take over or dismiss the athlete's voice, of course, right? I mean, I'm just speaking as a you know parent myself, right? This is the things that I would go about, how I would approach my kids, right? But
Yeah.
even most importantly, healthy financial decisions happen when everyone is on the same page. and the kid feels supported and not necessarily micromanaged.
Well, you mentioned teenager. I have teenagers too, and I can't micromanage those kids. So
Right. Yeah. So you understand. Right. Exactly.
gotta
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
gentle leading.
Yeah. You really do.
Gentle.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, have you come across anything in NIL deals that you felt were concerning from a financial perspective? And the second part of that question would be like, what do you think every parent should ask before they sign an NIL deal?
If it was me,
Yeah,
right?
if it was you,
If it
yes.
was me and someone came to my daughter, right, who's 16, and said, "Hey, we'll get you. We love your playing. You have a good head on your shoulders. We think you'd be a great brand ambassador for our product. And we would love to gift you a contract for $250,000 if you be this brand ambassador for our business, right? But what comes with a big contract or a big gift, right? There's something in between those lines, right? And so I think for me, before I even look at the contract, I want them to tell me, right, face to face, eye to eye, right, what's in it for them, and what's the catch,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? What's the catch? What's the catch here? Right. Before I look at this contract, because I am going to read it word for word, right? And I think that's the biggest thing. And one of the common mistakes that some people make is that they don't read the contract in its entirety, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
if you don't have the time to read it, okay, that's fair, right? It's okay to say you don't have the time, but hire someone to look over that contract for you, which is again, right, speaking to what you do, right, having an attorney,
Right there.
right,
Yeah.
right, exactly, right.
Raise
Um,
my hand.
yes, exactly. So it's like having someone do that, but
Yeah.
really it's just asking those two simple questions, right? What's in it for you, and what's the catch? Right? I wouldn't just take something because it sounds good, it looks good right there and then. Understand what you're signing up for. Understand if you're actually up for the commitment of that. Because as I mentioned, some of these contracts that I've seen kids sign up, and I've seen kids kind of get into this this loophole, is that when they don't understand what they're signing and they realize that they're committed to something that they really can't upkeep, it really could interfere with their performance, not only in the classroom but on the field as well, or on the court, or depending on what sports you play. Because I mentioned some of the contracts may say, hey, I may need you to post our brand every day or every other day. And as I mentioned, when does a kid really have time to be putting so much focus on social media? That's actually a big distraction, you know,
Oh,
if you will. And again, this is not taking away someone who does have the time for that, right? But you coming in freshman, sophomore, right, to each his own. Some kids probably can. Some kids don't mind it, right? But if that's not what you agree to, or what are okay with, then make sure you really understand what you're signing before you sign it, right?
I think, reading the contract is so important. So, um, if you don't understand legal contracts, then you should absolutely get someone to explain to you what your obligations are going to be in that contract. Because, sure, someone could pay you X number of dollars, but that doesn't come for free. And there's going to be a number of things that you're going to have to do in order to get paid. And by the way, you want to know when you're going to get paid. Those questions are very important for any parent to ask and to get the confirmation on before signing a deal. So,
Yeah, I agree.
um, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well, now let's talk about in your wheelhouse, because you are the financial expert in this conversation. What does it look like to you when we talked about this earlier? Building generational wealth, because as you know, sports are not forever, unfortunately. And how can athletes, again, start building and laying that foundation now to build that generational wealth for the future?
Yeah. So, I think, you know, having, those conversations with your parents, right? I think is definitely vital and is important, because you also want to make sure that, the family dynamic is all on one accord, because of course kids will always look for their parents for advice and for their approval. So just really just making sure that everyone is on the same page, right? But I definitely think, smart saving, right? Having a savings account, checking his account, right? Having those basic tools, right? I do think that it should be some shape, form, or fashion fair for the kids to have access to those accounts. And the reason being is because um, you want to make the kid feel like you trust. You want to make them feel empowered, that they are responsible enough to manage their money, right? Not to be so much of a gatekeeper, right? Because that could kind of come off controlling, if you will, in my advice. And again, I'm speaking as a parent, right?
Yeah.
For myself and what I would do for my kids, right? And then creating some wealth strategy tools, right? So building those wealth strategy tools, right? Where are you placing your money? Are you placing all of your money into the stock market? Are you saving some? Right? Are you placing into vehicles to help protect your money from the stock market? Because guess what? We all know the market goes up and then the market comes down, right? So how do we protect the money when the market does go down, right? Um, Protecting your name and brand, right? What are you posting on social media, right? What type of music are you sharing on your social media, right? You have some kids who may have a nice post, but the music has a lot of swearing, right? And again, people are watching, right? Just when
Yeah.
you think they're not watching, they're watching you, right?
Yeah.
So just being very mindful of what you're posting on social media, and then again, consistency, right? So you have to stay consistent to the plan, right? Save your money, right? Invest your money wisely, protect your money. Okay, that should be first and foremost, right? But also to protect your name and your brand. Make sure that you are familiar with your circle, right, of friends, right? If you know your friends are partying late at night on a Thursday afternoon and you got school the next day and you're still in high school, or if you're in college, right, you got a big exam, right? Making the conscious decision on, what's more important, right? Is this party important, right? Or is this test that I have tomorrow important, right? And so just making sure that you're surrounding yourself around the right group and the right circle is what I would encourage any young man or woman to do, especially when you're off to college and your parents are not around. Because then now, guess what? We trust that you will make the right decision, right? And that the things that we've learned, right, will hopefully turn over into your success.
You mentioned having a teen daughter. What's a financial principle that you've taught her, and share with me that conversation?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I do the 70-30 rule.
Okay.
So save 70, spend 30, right?
Simple.
Yeah, keep it simple, keep it plain. And what I have been doing, I have given my daughter bills, if you
I like
will.
that.
So she'll get a little allowance every other week, right? And of course, that money that she's giving me is really just money that I'm ultimately giving to her, right?
Right.
But it's the life lessons that I'm teaching her to be responsible, with her money, right? Being responsible as a teenager, right? Because when they go off to college and life after college, guess what? She will start getting bills, right? Receiving
Yep.
bills, and have to make sure she is managing her money, make sure that she has enough money set to the side for rent, for groceries, for her cell phone. And she doesn't know this. I didn't tell her this, but that little bit of money and rent or whatever it is you want to call it, or bills that I expect for her to pay on the first of each month, that money is going right into her college savings account,
Yeah.
right? So really, she's actually paying herself, right?
Yeah.
But really, what this is just teaching her healthy habits, teaching her
Yeah.
healthy habits to help set her up for success.
I love that. I love that. I'm not sure that she loved it, but
Yeah, right. No, she doesn't. No, she doesn't. If anything, I'm like her walking ATM.
yeah,
So, but
that's
it's all
parents
right.
and kids. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, I mean, I think that you're doing really amazing work and helping athletes and families build awareness and confidence. I would love to hear a little bit more about, how people can connect with you, how people engage with you, where to find you. Tell me a little bit more about Blueprint. I'd love to hear about all these things so that families and student athletes can reach out to you if they need help.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And thank you so much, Janet, for giving me an opportunity and a platform to share what it is that we do. A little bit about Blueprint, right? We're simply put, it's all about giving athletes and their families a real foundation, right? A blueprint, right, for handling money with confidence, right? So, here at Blueprint Money Management, we focus on budgeting, saving, planning, building healthy financial behaviors before money starts managing them. And if an athlete eventually wants deeper financial strategy, sure, I'm happy to be a resource. But at its core, Blueprint is about empowerment, clarity, and long term stability. So my mission is simple: it's really to help athletes break cycles, build legacies, and become financially successful long after the cameras, contracts, and the cheers fade. Right? We want them to walk into their own version of that $1 million moment, not just through talent, but through knowledge and preparation. So, how you can find me, LinkedIn is definitely an avenue that I always encourage parents to use and to do their research on me. And again, I know I mentioned this before, but vetting is so important. And the reason why I say LinkedIn is because it has all my credentials, all the what I do, and you'll see my posts and what I share, and the work that we do for not just athletes. Of course, athletes are big.
Or-
Is that that's my heart, right?
Yeah.
Because I play professional sports. I'm sorry, I played sports all throughout high school and college, and I've worked with professional athletes. So I thought I mentioned that. But I also work with um, individuals as well. So families, right? Business owners, individuals who simply just want financial advice. So it's well beyond providing advice for athletes.
Yeah.
Is what I do. But LinkedIn is definitely a way to connect with me. And of course, my email is a great way. Which I don't know if I'll share that here or if I share that with you. I mean, if it's a platform you want me to share, but
You, you can absolutely share it if you feel
okay.
comfortable.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So a good way to connect with me is my email as well at Dontay, so Dontay at Cothrine Associates.com. So Cotherine Associates.com. Again, it's Cotherine Associates.com. Dontay at Cothrine Associates.com. Email to reach me is a great way to connect with me. I don't have an Instagram set up purposely for that page, but that will come at some point.
Yeah.
Where if parents want to reach me on social media, they can as well. But more to come on that at a later date.
All right, awesome. Well, after we've had an amazing conversation today about
Yeah, I
money,
agree.
helping athletes, families, things they should be aware of, things to look out for, tips to start building that generational wealth and that legacy. I love how you sort of break down some things that feel complicated, and money can be something that's an intimidating subject matter for a lot of people. So I love how you simplify these things, even like the 70-30 rule, right? That's something that families can walk away with, and that's a tool that can be used just out the gate. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
After everything we've discussed today, are you feeling, again, tying back to the title of this podcast, are you feeling more babes, balls, or brands, and why?
Oh, I'm definitely feeling baseball brands. Yes, absolutely. Because guess what? You have to have the grit, the confidence, right, to really speak to what you specialize in. So you have to be right ballsy in that way, right?
Yeah.
Because guess what, right? People only do business with those that they like, trust, and who's confident in the work that they do, right? So I appreciate you for creating such a platform that is healthy, It's great for the community. It's great for the audience. And it's great for those who just simply want to learn, right?
Yeah.
And gather information from insights from different professionals. So I'm always excited for opportunities like this. And actually, this is actually the first, thanks to you, Janet, for giving me an opportunity to really share a case. What it is that we do, how can we help empower the community, right? On the sporting community, especially, right, to make better informed decisions when it comes to their money. So I am a fan of your podcast. I am a fan of your work that you do, even
Yep.
outside of the podcast, and with your profession. And I hope that you and I can continue to have dialogues like this, and potentially do some work together.
I agree totally. I feel the same about you. I love that you can connect with people on a personal level and that you
Appreciate
bring
that.
your financial acumen to helping, students and families alike, in this territory. So I'm
Yeah.
so glad that we're connected and that you were
Yes.
able to.
Same.
So thank
Yes.
you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Janet.
Hey, thank you for hanging with me on Babes, Balls, and Brands. Keep grinding and protecting your brand because your story matters and it's just getting started. Stay focused, stay fierce, and remember to always bet on yourself. Till next time.